Right, this reading is for Addison. I went ahead and pulled up the client sheet that I will attach to this reading. And Addison, it is a pleasure to look at your chart. Thank you so much for your interest. I am going to start where I see some things that just jump out to me. Obviously, you have a lot of Sagittarius energy, and I think it's in an interesting way. So you have a stellium of your Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter in the 12th house. And then you also have a lot of energy in Sagittarius. So it's not quite a stellium because it's a little separated here. But you do have this conjunction of Pluto and Venus. And then you also have your sun in the first house. So to me, that's interesting because the 12th house is kind of our spiritual house, our house of the unconscious or repressed areas or repressed energy. Sometimes it can be like the past or um, karmic lessons and energy. And then the first house is the beginning, the physical body, our identity, our physical self. So see how they're totally different ideas here, totally different settings. And combined, that is the majority of your personal planets, with the exception of the moon. So there's a lot of energy in both. This kind of this duality that you are experiencing in this life here. So we have the 12th house with your Mercury, your Mars, and your Jupiter, all in the sign of the ever optimistic, expansive, curious, exploring Sagittarius. So while these are sometimes the um, energies that would be in the subconscious or not easily accessible, in the sign of Sagittarius, I feel like there is some expansion of this energy. So you have more of an awareness than maybe if it was another sign, because the fire energy of the Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, which expands wherever it is. And you have Jupiter in its own sign in that 12th house. So it's not that these are super repressed feelings for you. It's almost like Jupiter in that 12th house and all those planets in there is kind of pushing at the seams here and making that house larger for you. So it's almost like you're a person who maybe it's going to take a little time to mature. Sometimes the 12th house is kind of like the end of the road here. So you have already experienced these other settings. If you're thinking of the house, the physical setting of the 12th house can be something that you don't get to right away. So maybe as you mature at some point later in adulthood, even spirituality is going to take a big center focus in your life. And it's going to be something that you find that you're just like naturally good at, and you get things and you'll want to share that wisdom with Jupiter in this house. So you have this kind of larger than life understanding and spiritual presence. And it's going to be more with Jupiter in that house, more in a public way that you're going to share that wisdom somehow. But it's this twofold part, because Jupiter in the 12th house is going to want you to make a lot of time for yourself to meditate and connect on things. However, you connect to spirituality, whether it's through these like pilgrimages, like I could see you being the type of person that later in life takes like some kind of Buddhist temple pilgrimage in like Indonesia and just goes on this long journey and experiences spirituality through actually traveling to places and other cultures where they are spiritual, and like through the physical challenge, and you actually connect spiritually. That's just an image that comes to my mind when I see Jupiter in Sagittarius in the 12th house. So you're kind of taking spirituality to the next level. You're taking something of the 12th house that isn't really of this world, and you're pulling it out of the heavens and bringing it onto this earth to share your wisdom with others. So it does become like an actual place. So if you feel like you're drawn to spiritual structures like churches or temples or missionary retreats, or the things that are physical representations of spirituality, and you feel comfortable in that place, it makes sense, because this 12th house Sagittarius energy is like you are going to embody these spiritual philosophies, because Sagittarius loves to explore the unknown and find the deeper meaning. And while they're very curious, they're also teachers. They're the ones that travel and then come back and share their wisdom now with us who did not go on the journey. So there's an element of being a teacher, becoming the mentor. So it's not something that you're going to keep for yourself. It's something that you're going to wind up sharing with others. And it becomes a big part of who you are. With Mercury, you'll think and speak of it. Mars, you'll physically engage in it, whether it's a physical form of prayer. And Jupiter, you are going to expand other people's knowledge of this too. The other side of the 12th house could be, until you get to that physical state, the maturity of the potential of the 12th house. In your day-to-day life, you might find yourself with some emotional instability when fire is in the 12th house. Sometimes we just get to where we have all these feelings and they come out more like, if you think of fire under the surface of the earth, we think of like volcanic eruption, because it will come out at some point, and just like a volcano, not everyone's sure when or why, and it just goes. But then you know what happens? Everything cools back down and it goes back to normal states, because that's what happens when the fire becomes swept away in emotion. It can erupt and then it cools back down. There's no grudges held. There's no inner resentment that builds up for years and years. It just needs to be unleashed somehow. But I feel like with the energy you're balancing in the first house, the more that you get to know yourself and you get to understand this real Sagittarius presence that you chose, you'll start to identify with your 12th house when you're working on that meditation and spiritual side of yourself. You'll be able to uncover those and accept, 12th house can come sometimes be like our shadow side too. Like, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to feel good feelings, and it's okay to feel not so good feelings. And once we can accept both sides, they don't have to build up so much. They can be released appropriately as they come. And you can kind of check in on yourself more often and have that inner dialogue with yourself. So you're not just lashing out seemingly unprovoked to people. Problem with the 12th house Mars in a fire sign, although it's good for you to let it out when it comes out randomly, it can sometimes burn bridges. Just like if you think of that volcano and the lava flows down the mountainside, everything that's in its path gets destroyed. So sometimes there are long-term ramifications of an emotional outburst that people weren't ready for. They couldn't evacuate in time because the temper just flowed out. So as you get to mature and have that more awareness of when you're starting to have those triggers, or you're starting to put the pieces together. Okay, like this person says something to me. I thought I didn't care, or I let it go, or I laughed it off, but actually, it did make me upset. And every time I see them, they say something that irritates me, and I always just laugh it off. Well, then by the 10th time, they said something maybe not even that hurtful, and you blew up at them. Well, then you'll learn, oh, okay, as soon as people set me off, I'm going to speak my mind. And even if it's not in this jolly way, um, or the way that people expect me to be, or this person that never takes anything personally, because Sagittarius sometimes has this reputation that they just speak what's on their mind, and then they let everything else roll off their shoulders, and they don't take things super personally. But that's not always true. And for you, with you having a Leo moon, that's more of a fixed sign, a fixed energy where things do internalize and they stay and they remember, and it's your emotions. And the Leo does have a pride that when it's challenged, or um, just when somebody is actually seeking to hurt you, you're not going to laugh that off. You're going to remember, and you are going to take it personally. So for you, I think sometimes you give the impression that you're cool, but deep inside you're not. And you'll start to learn to draw firmer boundaries with people and put them in their place quicker than just keeping it inside. So talking of your Leo moon here, it's also a fire sign. You have a fire rising, fire sun, and fire moon. So there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of external energy, there's a lot of doing things. There's an air of confidence when you enter the room. People look to you like you know what you are doing, even if you don't, because you just come off very like proactive, and that you're just very expressive. So it just gives this sense of confidence and sometimes like authority, even because you're just very sure of yourself, or so you appear. So people just assume that you're qualified and you're going to be confident in whatever you approach. And obviously, that's not always the case. But with your fire sign, optimism and passion and bravery, you can kind of fake it till you make it than most people. So that's a nice blessing of having all fire. You can be very charismatic. People will likely go along with what you say a lot of the times because you can say it so well. You are so much fire that in your personal planets, you're lacking a lot of balance with other elements. So sometimes all that ambition and fearlessness can come off even more impulsive, and the willingness to act before you've had time to really think through a plan can sometimes cause you to exert a lot of energy and not get anywhere. So you want to try to balance that out with coming up with like an ability to play it forward a little bit in your mind before you just act on things. When your chart ruler is Jupiter, you get away with a lot because you're just blessed with a lot of like good fortune and abilities to bounce back. Like the mutable sign of Sagittarius really is good at going with the flow and not being held back too long if something doesn't work out. They can kind of roll it into another idea and keep the momentum going, which is a great strength. But sometimes you're going to need more than that to see long-term goals. It's great for the right now. And if you just have to do a lot of short things that you need a lot of energy for, then you are gold. But if you really have ideas that are going to take time, if you're really trying to plant that garden, and watch it grow into something that takes dedication, thoughtfulness, a real structured routine, maintenance, problem solving, all those things, then you're going to need to work on those areas because you have all the passion to do anything you want, but you're going to need a little bit more thoroughness to see things through. So, a way to get that into you is to find people who can support you to help teach you those things. So, you want to surround yourself with people who have more earth energy or more water energy, who can provide structure for you, help you create a routine, help you see cause and effect more. What that air sign energy gets along really well with fire. If you can find air sign people in your life to help you communicate, they can help you see parts of things that you are missing. So your ascendant is Sagittarius. So on the other side of you, once you've gone through all this journeying of self-discovery, on the other side of that is Gemini. It's the air sign, and it's going to have a better idea of seeing your big picture. You kind of can, you have so much wisdom and philosophy and really great ability to dive right into things and just know that it's going to work out, which is wonderful. And Gemini is really good at communicating ideas, coming up with a partnership to do something that just one person can't do by themselves. They help be the detail, that mercurial energy is more organized, detail focused, and going to help you communicate the part of you that can't see the right now and the fine details of things. So you want to surround yourself with air signs who can really problem solve and see what you want your outcomes to be, how the big picture looks. And then the earth sign people are like, okay, well, let's come up with a real solid plan. Let's get this structure how we want it. Let's get all of our steps to this goal. And then, throw in some water sign friends to help you keep the creativity and then the support system for you. When you have an overall deficit in other areas except for one, just kind of shows that you have a lot to offer people in the sparking dreams and energizing your room. And people around you are going to need that from you. And that you need so much from other people that you're here to feel and learn and work through things that are foreign to you. And that's what you want. That's what Sagittarius wants. They want to learn how other people think and act and what they believe and how they do things that are totally foreign to them. That's exciting to them. They don't want to be around people who are like them because that's boring, right? Sagittarius is worse fear is being bored to death. They don't want to do the same thing every day, and they don't want to be around the same people every day. They don't want to eat the same thing every day. They don't really want to do the same job every day. They want to be free and they want to experience totally different ideas. So I would suggest that you find people that think totally different and do things totally different and feel totally different, and you're going to inspire them and they're going to inspire you. And I would start with getting a Gemini bestie because I think that's going to have a big, huge impact on you. It would be a totally polar opposite energy from you. And it would just really show you, it would bring you kind of out of the clouds into your everyday more. And you'll be kind of blown away at what you're missing in the now. I think Gemini has a really really great way of making magic out of the everyday. When Sagittarius is often looking for magic in a more fantastical way. So that would be a very great balance for you. Okay, I wanted to talk about a couple of these squares here. You have your 12th house energy squaring your third house energy here. So it looks like with Uranus involved, you just have a lot of sudden starts and stops and changes that might affect your personality, your ego, when you think of getting to know yourself and expanding your world and who you are and the impression you're making on the world. Your individuality, Sagittarius is a very freedom kind of approach to life. It looks like sometimes there can be some sudden changes that you're going to face of people coming in and out, or in the third house, maybe early years of school, sudden changes in school, or teachers or friends coming in and out, or suddenly having difficulty and then acing things, just a little unpredictability. But the good news there is that the third house is really younger childhood years. So then in the other areas, there's not as many surprises and changes, but we kind of learn who we are in those younger years a lot of times, and through our peers and siblings. There can be a little unpredictability. It can be exciting, but when it's square, sometimes it can challenge you too. It can be like, well, I was trying to be like this, and I wanted to do it this way because that's who I think I am. But now this happened and kind of throw me through a loop, and I don't really know anymore if that is that challenging my identity. So it can be frustrating, but the lesson here is to kind of always, I feel like Uranus is always kind of letting us know that nothing lasts forever. Things can come and go, good or bad, and you just have to appreciate the excitement for if it's good and appreciate it, and if it's a struggle, to know that it's not permanent and this too shall pass on some things. And then, you know, learn to appreciate the blessings and push through the challenges, because it's all ultimately going back to your identity. So all of these are challenges to help you prove to yourself, because it's the first house, who you really are, what you really stand for, and how you're communicating who you are through and through. Are you who you say you are? And let's see. It's kind of the challenge to your identity. And I'd say it happens more in early childhood because of the third house. But some people would argue the third house is the school aged years, and that can go all the way through high school. So if you feel challenges to your person, it's to help you be more solid in that. And that mutable energy sometimes can be well, I'll morph into something else if this doesn't work out. But I feel like this challenge is to kind of build a little resilience to who you are, and don't let yourself get knocked over too easily by any changes, because all that first house energy and that Pluto in the first house, part of your identity is transformation. So kind of embrace that in yourself. Let's see the other square going on here. It looks like Jupiter is in a little square here too. So when Jupiter's squaring, I feel like you kind of have to like lean into a higher faith in things, because Jupiter is our planet of benevolence and gifts and wisdom and fortune and expansion. So here it looks like it's squaring Uranus. loosely. It's a 7-degree orb, so it's not super on top of it. But I think it's worth talking about because it's in your 12th house and it's your chart ruler. And it's kind of the same thing to me. It's like you can trust that things are going to work out. And when Uranus throws you a curveball of a sudden change in your life, you don't have to lose all faith in everything because it is part of the plan. It lessons have to be learned through chaos sometimes. And if you chose all the Sagittarius energy, maybe that's what you prefer. Maybe learning long, solid lessons is boring and ineffective. But if you are Sagittarius, you actually learn quickly and are paying attention when things come through suddenly and swiftly. So it's kind of just getting through to you in a way that you're going to understand through sudden changes and have faith that that is what is supposed to happen. And then you have a couple, the ascendant scoring your north node. So where you are and where you are going, you're going to want to lean into this Piscean psyche of spirituality, of it's still that mutable energy. So it's still like going with the flows and the energy, life force, which you're familiar with. So that's wonderful. But it's on more of this spiritual energy that is kind of limitless instead of just bursts of passion. So where Sagittarius has this fire and this passion, it can burn out. Where Pisces is more of a yin energy, that it's more intuitive and receptive. It's patient. The love is patient, love is kind. It's going to let things take time to happen, and it's compassionate, and it is self-sacrificing even, where that's kind of the theme of the 12th house. It's the karma, the sacrificial service energy. All of that is kind of what you want to experience. And the North Node wants the psyche to get there too. It doesn't want to just go to the Buddhist temples like the 12th house. It wants to live there in its own mind, in his everyday life. So the third house is what we do in our daily routines where we are. So it's our neighborhoods, it's our siblings, it's our neighbors, it's the person at the grocery store, it's our commute to work and back. So your North Node wants you to find this spiritual place and then keep it in your mind as you go through your daily life. And you will be the example to people of this karmic spiritual energy in non-spiritual places. You may be the only example of spirituality that some people see, and that's going to be your mission. And the ascendant in Sagittarius squaring that is just kind of like you filter through yourself this bigger, larger than life spiritual energy, just mutable. I want to experience everything, but it's more in a self-serving way and curiosity and to expand your mind. And you're going to find different motivations to keep that energy alive, and not just for the sake of exploring it and experiencing different things, but the point being then to be an example of it and live this serenity and be this walking example of what it is. So sometimes there can be a challenge there because the idea of doing something longer term or for other reasons than our own ego motivation can be kind of challenging for Sagittarius. Once it's not a sport or something they're chasing, sometimes it can lose its passion. And Pisces sometimes takes a while to get to, and it is patient. And it's not looking to serve itself, it's looking to serve others. So there's a maturity there, and that's why the North Node is a North Node. It's something that we're destined to have, but it sometimes takes a lifetime to achieve. You have to experience everything you need to experience first in order to get there. And to release the South Node in the 9th house, which is the Sagittarius's house, will take a little while because the South Node is comfortable there. We've already mastered that. And in the 9th house, you're very comfortable with big ideas and going far places, even if it's in your mind, and being exhilarated by the journey and these wonderful destinations to achieve. And the 3rd house is, well, maybe we're not going anywhere. Maybe we're staying here, but we're still going to have this spiritual energy about us. And that's where you want to master that feeling. Let's look at some transits here. I can pull that up. We have the transits going on now on the outer ring. The ones going on that I like to look at is Venus and Jupiter. It just is a little boost of where things are going well. So the 7th house is partnership, and it looks like you're still here for a little while. Let's see until then. December. Okay, so this is currently, excuse me, that was fast forwarding it a bit. Currently, the transits on the outside, your Venus is actually in the 11th house, which is still communication in large groups. Not so much a one-on-one partnership, but more like if you wanted to be in some kind of a club or a community group, you would have maybe a larger group of friends in that, and there would be an easier time communicating feelings of love and appreciation to each other. In Scorpio, so something a deeper meaning to you, not a superficial group of just turning into a gossip hour, but something where you can really connect with people who feel what you feel and are interested in actually like uncovering some kind of truth and meaningful topic. 11th house sometimes can also be, well, thinking about your future and like long-term retirement, where you want to be, what like larger gifts to yourself do you want to achieve, and then having Venus in that area that you're transiting can be luck getting to it. So sometimes, I use the word luck loosely because Venus isn't always good luck. It can also be discernment. It's kind of like the gift of knowing what I want and figuring out what I don't want to, right? When I'm attracted to something, it's not that I'm just attracted to it. I'm also realizing that I'm not attracted to other things. So I can kind of zone in on things a little bit better about what makes me feel good. So maybe now's a good time to think about, well, what would make you feel good to accomplish when you're older that you can really show for it? Or it could be, well, what kind of people do I want to be around now that make me feel good about how I'm spending my time, and what kind of groups I want to be associated with to make me feel more connected. And then let's see, I like to see where Jupiter is too. Jupiter now is in the fifth house, so that's fun. That's kind of like our house of pleasure, romance, having a good time. So let's see how long Jupiter is going to be there. Jupiter moves a little slower. So Jupiter's all the way from now until April 1st of next year. So try to enjoy things. This is a good time to get a hobby, create something, see what kind of creative energy you have. Being a fire dominant energy, you're probably able to make a lot of interesting, um, creative, or just producing things that you've made yourself. It's a life giving energy. So like giving birth to something that you created could be limitless, and it doesn't have to be a real detailed or painstaking achievement. It's almost the opposite. It should be something fun and creative and just kind of flows easily through you, and you're passionate about it. I would say in Sagittarius, you're probably doing something that has a lot of different results, that is maybe even something with your body that you do physically. If you like to do some kind of sports or like competitive edge to it, if you like to watch sports or play competitively, I could see that being something that you would enjoy. And then in the fifth house, it would just kind of say, well, now's the time, like bet on that team if you are feeling so inclined, or join that sport because your tryouts will go smoother for you during this time. You can take a chance on being competitive and be successful now. So now's the time to kind of prove to yourself that you are good at this thing, and that you can actually get joy and recognition and achievement during this time in doing your hobby or your competitive fun expression. And don't take yourself too seriously in this area. It should feel fun. It should feel like a good time, and it should feel like you can compete with it. All right, so those are the only ones I'm going to look at, since I don't really have a lot of other transits that I like to look at unless you have any kind of pressing situation. Those are just kind of my feel good ones to end with. So you have places where you can seek to enjoy life. I feel like that's what we're here for. And let me know what you think. If you have any questions, I'll stop sharing it here, and I will send it to you with that cheat sheet to look at. If you want to ask me about any specific situation coming up, I'm happy to look at your transits again. I will save this chart just in case. All right. Thank you so much.